are slugs and snails destroying everything that you're planting this time of year. The wet weather has just brought them en masse, and they're slowly munching away through our fruits and vegetables. But I'm going to go to war with these leaf munching critters. I want to come up with as many natural ways as possible to reduce this slug and snail population. I don't want to use pesticides, I don't want to use all that kind of thing. I don't necessarily want to physically harm them myself. But if I can get nature to do the job for me, then that is a win in my eyes. And yesterday I decided to take that plunge and actually build a wildlife pond. This pond will bring in all manner of different creatures, hopefully, from those fantastic frogs that will happily munch away at those slugs and snails. And if I'm really lucky, I may even get a newt who will also have a go at that population. But even the insects that a natural nature pond can bring all have benefits against those slugs and snails, plus other pest problems. So let's step back in time till yesterday and see how I accomplished my pond. And it is here in our orchard area, right next to where our greenhouse is. Now, I've raked away some of the wood chip that I've had here, and it's given me an idea roughly of what I want, but I don't have a measuring tape because I've left it at home. But this is roughly what I want to do in the area. Now here, there's loads of areas for other wildlife to come in. There's plenty of shaded areas. Now this is in full sun, and depending on who you talk to will tell you that full sun's bad, full sun's good. It's a real mixed message, but having it in full sun is really beneficial, so long as you've got the right plants in there to help cover some of that water. So this is where I'm going to do it. Now, it's like I said, it's probably not even going to be as big as this. And I'm going to have a deeper pot on the one side, aiming for about 2 foot, but that will depend on how bad this soil is under here. So all I've got to do first off now is make sure I've dug my hole. But don't buy your liner before you've dug your hole, in case your liner actually doesn't fit and it ends up being too small. You're always better to dig your hole first and then measure up for a liner. But I'm going to work it out to make sure that I'm actually able to fit my liner in. Hopefully, if all goes to plan. So, first thing I need to do, scrape off the rest of this wood chip and then start digging my hole. So this is my hole dug. Now I'm going to keep in mind it is not a fantastic fish pond. It's not going to be for that kind of thing. It is just a basic natural wildlife pond. Well, when I say basic, yes, I could have just put a washing up bowl into the ground and had it like that. But I wanted to create something that I actually can plant up. Now, in this area, I've got obviously a deeper hole for anything like that likes a little bit of water. And then I've got about a 20 centimetre rim all the way around the top end. Now, this is for either plants and gravel and an area for any wildlife to easily get up and out of the pond without any issues. Because the last thing we want is for anything to drown in the pond. I have got to go round and pick up any sharp stones or sharp roots and lots of glass in this area. This area was a rubbish pit from previous tenants. It's absolutely full of tons and tons of weeds. That's why we covered it with wood chip. Just so we can put some pots on here, our apples, our fruit trees, blueberry bushes, all that kind of thing in this area. And then we don't have to worry about too much, apart from the occasional pulling up a bindweed and mare's tail, well, horsetail. So What I've got to do next, I don't want to make it any bigger because I'm worried about my liner. I've only got a 2 metre by 2 metre. Now it doesn't look too big, but by the time you took into the consideration of the depth of the hole, it could all add up very, very quickly. So I have no underlay. It was one of the things I actually forgot to order. So I am going to budget, and I've got some black builder's plastic that we used last year on our allotment to keep the weeds down when we first took it over, to keep it covered through those winter months. So I think what I'm going to do is cut that down into manageable pieces and actually line this hole with the black underlay, and then the pond liner can go on top. Now, I've just got this from Swell. It's a nice cheap liner. I think if I was doing a proper fish pond, I think I'd definitely get a thicker liner. But this should be okay at the moment. So what I've got to be careful of is any punctures. I don't really want to be standing on this once I've got it in. Now, I've backfilled a little bit to reduce the size. Like I said, normally I would have my measuring tape and do it properly, but I'm against time a little bit today, so I really do need to get this particular job done. Now what I'm probably going to have to do now, because it isn't level at the top, as it fills with water, I'll actually backfill it to the height that it needs to be. So all I'm going to do is to start filling this up, and then I'll fold as I go. Let the weight of the water actually pull the liner in, helping with the folds and the creases. So let's get this water in. Now this is almost filled to where I want it, and what I'll do is I'll bring back this edge a little bit and fold over the plastic. Now, it definitely could have been better, but this will still make a really good wildlife pond. Now, all I've got to do is add my gravel, which I'm adding gravel to this, some stones, and to trim off the edges. Now, I think that is the level roughly I am going to go for. Get my gravel in first, get all the sides done, and then I'll trim off, because the excess weight of the gravel, because it is only a little bit of water in here really, the weight of the gravel will pull that liner down a little bit more. So I don't really want to trim it until I know exactly where it's going to fall. So I'll be using a 10mm pea gravel in this pond, and it will come up on the outside here and then form a beach on the other side going onto dry land, so anything that falls in can easily get out. Now normally I would do a ring of stones just on the inside or the outside of the deeper hole. This will keep all that pea shingle in. I've got no pond foam, which is what I do normally use when I do my bits of ponds and things like that. So what I'm going to do is I've got some house bricks for now, and I'm going to put it around the one side at least here, just to hold back some of that pea shingle. Now, it's not the prettiest of things having house bricks or anything like that, but this is an allotment, it's not a show pond, and all I'm trying to do is introduce wildlife. Now, because I'm not using lovely Cotswold stone or anything like that, this is going to be very rustic looking. But I've got some extra pieces of plastic here that I want to put in the pond, so the bricks actually don't do too much damage. Now, the only reason I'm using bricks is just to hold back some of the gravel that I'll be putting in. And because it's a wildlife pond and there's not going to be any fish in here, the bricks hopefully should hold it all in place. Now all this extra bit of plastic that I've got in here, all this you won't see because it will be covered in pea shingle. Now if I had the foam, I would have just foamed these lightly together just to hold them in. This should, in theory, level out a little bit. Now what I can do is empty some of this out the water once everything's washed and put in fresh water. Now I've gone for the 10mm because I can plant into this quite easily. And then I'll have one more bag here to cover this whole area, and then probably one bag down the bottom down there. Now the stuff down the bottom, because I've got it leaning backwards, I probably don't need to put the brickwork, but I would expect some of it to actually end up down the bottom of the pond, but it's fine. I've got no issue with that because I have no fish in here. This 10mm medium is perfect to actually grow these plants in. So I'm just going to go and get the rest of the bags. So here is the pond. Now I won't say completely finished because it certainly isn't, but I've managed to cap some of the one side with some of the bricks that I've got, and I've just placed some wood over that side just to keep that liner in place for now. I'll probably put some more bricks on that side, but I want to mortar them in. The whole reason for this is to help fight against slugs and snails. Now these kind of plants will bring in dragonflies. You've got the mint that will bring in pollinators, little hidey places and places for the frogs, newts maybe, to go, which will fight against all those slugs and snails. Well, I'm hoping anyway. Now, again, it's not the prettiest of things, but it should do its job. And this is the pond the next day. As you can see, it is much, much clearer than it was the day before. Everything's settled, and I've added new bits of wood. Well, when I say new, it's older bits of wood that I had lying around in different areas. Now, I will add more wood around the outsides just to give the wildlife somewhere to hide, but that will be as and when I find some. I've added some creeping jennies to the side. This will happily grow in between all the crevices and into the water itself. It can be a little bit invasive, so you do have to be a little bit careful. I've also started planting up the sides, and I'm trying to use things that will creep over the stonework. Again, giving those insects somewhere to hide. I've got moss going into some of my pieces of wood because I really do love natural moss. And as time goes by, I'll be adding more moss in different areas just to increase the habitats again. Now I'm going to give it a couple of days before I do much more, because I want to make sure that I haven't got any leaks or anything else. It will already be a pain in the backside to fix any liner at the moment, but this liner is very cheap, and because of the amount of stonework I've used in here, you never know whether you're going to get any holes or not. If it is, I'll strip it back and then I'll just redo it with a better, thicker liner. But what do you guys think of the pond? Do you think it will actually introduce any wildlife into this area? Have you managed to put in a pond in your growing space? Do you use like a washing up bowl, a tub, a bucket, or a bigger pond than what I've done here? Let me know in the comments. I love to find out what you guys are actually doing. Over time, this will naturalise a little bit more, and I'll be adding more and more plants from our pond from home. I've added some of the gravel from our pond at home from my bog filter that I have. So that will add in a little bit of bacteria, good bacteria as well, into this pond. There is snails in here already from the plants and some of the ones I managed to bring in from my pond as well. And eventually more and more wildlife will find its way into the pond. Always amazes me how quickly things find ponds and water sources to live in. Now hopefully eventually I'll have those frogs that I really, really want in the pond. And like I said, I'd really love some newts, but we'll have to wait and see what happens over the next year or two. I want to build up this whole one side with wood. These birchy planks are going to be going. It's just keeping the liner down at the moment, but I'm actually going to stack some branches or rotting wood up that one side, so it gives it a little bit more places for, again, those insects and other animals that would like to hide. Hopefully over time I can plant up more and more around the edges, add a bit more creeping jenny, add a few more other bits and pieces. But so far I'm really happy with it, and I can't wait to start getting all these slug busting insects and creatures to help me on our allotment.